welcome to Bloom in Full Color, where we live life in high definition. So today we're talking about perennials. So what is a perennial in Idaho? Which seems to be kind of a confusing little thing. I've got Liz Hall here from Refresh Marketing. And have you ever grown perennials, Liz?
No, because I don't know the difference.
Okay, let's start there. Okay, so what's
I get
a perennial?
confused.
That's all right. Well, I always have people like, what's a perennial? What's an annual?
Yeah.
So the best way I can remember it is perennial is a longer word, so it lives longer. So
Okay.
perennial is 3 or more years, okay? Because if it's only a 2-year plant, it's called a biennial. And then annual, you get to do it annually. You get to put it in annually. It doesn't come back annually. It is a perennial if it comes back.
All right.
Year after year. That's probably the best way I could say
So
that.
yes, I have planted perennials.
Do you have a favorite?
My grandma always called them flags, but they're irises.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my great grandmother, Ruth Adams, which is generation 1 of the greenhouse, she loved irises. So my great granddad would paint irises and roses all the time. We had them everywhere. Now, the funny thing of that is we have like 1 iris on the schedule now that we grow. And I'm like, no, we're getting more irises. I actually go buy my irises somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
I love irises,
we're bringing irises back. I promise. That and daylilies because I'm way into lilies. So, perennials are kind of, they're nice because they give year after year after year. So you put them in once, and if you get them established and happy, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Trim it, sure, great, fine. But then you're set after that. And then you have beautiful garden. So it works out pretty well. So yeah, that's what a perennial is.
Nice. Now that I know.
Yeah, and here's the fun thing that happens in Idaho. So we're having huge population influx, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are moving here from everywhere. It's really funny to be in the retail and people are like skirting around that they may or may not have came from California. I don't care if you came from California. I don't care if you came from Timbuktu or Dubai. It doesn't matter to me as long as you don't argue with me when I tell you it's going to die because it's not a perennial here. I love, we had a gal last year from California and she wanted to know which geranium would be really good as a shrub in her yard. Excuse me, what? It's not a shrub here. So that's where I had to kind of explain to her what is a zone. And, geranium's a zone 12. We're a zone 5. So what a zone is, I think it's the USDA decided what would live in what places and they put numbers to it. So if you look us up, it says we're a 6 here in Twin Falls and we're not. We're a 5.
Okay.
So, and that being said, it doesn't always matter how cold it gets. Sometimes it matters how much water something gets. So when you're shopping for a perennial, we kind of ask where you live. Are you in town or are you in the country? Because if you're protected versus not protected, things are going to live or not live. So we're trying to always set you up for success. I don't want you to have to buy something 3 times because I do that enough. Like right. She who kills the most plants wins. That is a game we play at Moss. We try not to play it in the back with the stuff that you're buying, of course. Yes. But all of us take stuff home. And you know what? We kill stuff too. It happens. Like if you're not killing things, you're not trying hard enough. That's kind of the way I figure it. And how many things have you killed?
A lot.
Yeah, it was like I'm trying to count. I don't even have.
I get very disappointed because I want to grow things even in my house, and I just tend to not do well.
Think of it this way. You can keep pets and children alive. Why do you keep pets and children alive?
Well, I feed them.
And they're loud if you don't.
Yes.
Plants can't tell you about it. So what I was explaining in a CSI class I taught last weekend, when we see a plant wilting, we call it flagging. So it's the plant flagging. And so plants talk to you. They just can't make any noise. You have to visually get used to them, be looking at them on a regular basis, and then you start to see their signs. They're like, oh, my leaves aren't standing straight up. They're curled. Oh, this side's starting to lean this way. Like I've got pansy baskets hanging in front of my house right now. And one of them, the whole side fell off. And it really is there. It just, it's dry. It's trying to tell me, hey, homie, get the hose, bring it over.
Yeah.
So plants will tell you about it. You just got to pay attention. So I always suggest that people, as they're getting used to having plants in their space and developing a habit to take care of them, you have to build it onto an already existing habit. So like houseplants, do you have coffee every Saturday morning and read the paper or watch a certain show? Or do you have like an already built activity, like you start laundry on Saturday morning? Whatever it is, and put a reminder on your phone that says water indoor plants. That is, mine's at 8 a.m. on Saturday. Like that's when it happens. And oftentimes I will silence it and then forget. And then 2 weeks goes by and I'm like, oh, plants are pissed. So it happens at my house too. It's you just kind of have to build it into an existing habit.
I have 2 that I've kept alive for 5 years.
Nice.
So we're getting there.
So when I met my husband, he had 2 plants. One he called the sword plant, which was the mother-in-law's tongue because it's sharp. And it's actually a Sansevieria. And they call it the snake plant too. He was so proud that he had kept it alive. I can't even remember. Oh, the other one was a Dieffenbachia. It was a Chinese evergreen. And I took over care and I killed both of them.
Oh.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fine. I could replace them was the good news. Him impressed with my houseplant skills? Maybe not so much. He's also way into succulents, and we grow a ton of succulents. I either forget about them completely, in which case they thrive, or I'm like, oh, water that every 2 weeks. No, I kill them every time.
So succulents are a perennial.
No.
Ironic.
Well, okay. Let me retract that. Yes and no. So what I call a succulent are tropicals here. And they're drought tolerant. They're great in containers on your patio. They're good in a sunny window. They will start to stretch this time of year because they're hunting for the sun. And they like hot. They're great to like put together a beautiful container, put it out on your patio table where you're having people all summer and just water it once a month or just let it rain on it. Or if it rains, don't touch it for a month. Mm-hmm. And they're really pretty. Then if you're going into the perennial side of succulents, you're going to look for a sedum that is zone 5 or lower or sempervivum. Sempervivum is the botanical name for hens and chicks.
That's the ones I'm thinking about.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, there are tons of options. I know we grow several. There's this whole steppables movement. Actually, our general manager was a part of the original branding and marketing of that program. But the steppables are sedums and thymes that you can actually walk on and step on that are perennials that are kind of like a succulent and very drought tolerant, very versatile. They'll grow in all sorts of areas. And then you have sempervivums that are like they call it the chick charm series, and they're really colorful hens and chicks. Like pinks and greens and blues and grays and dark greens and reds. And I mean, they're really cool. So
those would be cool.
That's kind of how those work. Now, the beauty of those guys is, okay, so let's talk about winter kill. So people always think winter kill happens from cold. So winter kill is you plant a perennial. It might have gotten established. It might not have. You might have had it for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden it does come back. And you're like, what the hell? This is a perennial. It's supposed to come back.
Yeah.
Well, say it was a really dry, moderate winter and we didn't get that much snow. Well, it didn't get enough moisture. And so that's how it dies. And so perennials in the winter will actually, their roots just go lower to find water. And then they take that up and that's what helps them bring back. But they actually have to, do you know that perennials never bloom their first year?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we actually fake a winter here so that they bloom for you the first year. So that's what the industry would call vernalization. But we will plant it this summer, put it in its finished size, finish it, and then we put it outside and kill it in the natural weather and put it through a full growth cycle. And then in the spring, as we're taking care of it, getting it water again, really getting it back established, they flush out a lot bigger and a lot faster. And they bloom for you the first season. So that's like when you're buying perennials at a store, if the grower's done it correctly, and that I'll leave open to interpretation, but if the grower's done it correctly, it'll bloom for you the first season. And most professional growers do. It's the new guys that are just like, well, I planted these and they never bloomed. It's like, did you do your homework? And, that's what 70 years in the business does for you. Helps.
Right. Yeah, because
details.
I had no clue about that. Yeah.
It makes things easier.
Yeah. So why don't why don't perennials, see, I can't even say the word right. Yeah. Why don't they bloom all year?
Okay, so if you have to put all your energy into growing, you only have so much energy on reserve, right? So
Mhm.
it's like when a tomato is putting on fruit, you don't see it putting on a whole bunch of new leaves at the same time. It has to focus on one thing. So, like out in the greenhouse, if I've got something not quite filling the cup, right, covering the soil on top, it starts blooming, it'll stop growing. It stalls out because it's putting all of its energy at the bloom. So perennials have spent so much energy coming back up out of the ground after going through a winter. They put all that growth into that. They actually have a section of the season that they bloom. So that's kind of the fun of perennials is if you get really into it, you're kind of staging your garden so there's always something in bloom.
Mm.
So if you really spend a lot of time out in your garden in the early part of the season, or you're out there a lot in the summer, or you're having, big, huge, well, or small, intimate, however you want to say it, gatherings in the fall where you're cooking for people and you're spending time on the patio, you want to kind of gear your garden. I guess a better question would be, what is your goal for your perennial garden? Like, do you want something that's colorful all year? Do you want something that's very low maintenance? Do you want something that is xeriscaping that after you get established, you don't ever water?
I have all three.
Not really. No, you have to get a little specific. You can find kind of a happy medium in a couple of those. But like xeriscaping and color year round, that's not going to happen. Not in our area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're good with foliage and texture, maybe you could half put that together, but you'd have to get flexible on what your definition of color is. That's actually why moss doesn't grow natives. Because what people love the idea of a native, but when they see it, they're like, oh, that's underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, that's what you'd find out in nature in high altitude desert Idaho. It could be penstemon, it could be lupin, think wildflowers.
Yep.
And that's kind of what people think when they think perennials here is wildflowers, which is great. And you might see rudbeckias or columbine. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. And you expect that to be extremely impactful in your garden. And sometimes it's not with perennials, but they're a little bit more subtle. But if you're like, okay, my goal is I'm busy all spring and I want to spend time in my garden in the summer. Okay, maybe we need to look at rudbeckias and echinaceas and kind of that midsummer bloomers. I love hibiscus. Like that's my thing.
Yeah.
I love hibiscus. Hibiscus does not grow very well here, but by God, if anyone's gonna figure it out, it's gonna be me. It's just gonna take a little while. And so I find what is my goal? I spend time in my garden in the summer and the fall. Spring, I'm here growing everybody else's stuff. So that's when I make sure that I have color in my garden. Right now, what I have coming up is like, I've got ornamental allium, I've got poppies starting to come up, I've got lupin, and irises are starting to pop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm seeing coming out. And I'm seeing roses starting to sprout. That one's touch and go because the temperatures have been so all over the place. But just kind of depends what your goal is with your garden. So like playing to that, we get asked a lot, help me design my garden. And I'm like, no. What I like and what you like are going to be different. What I could do is say, what's your goals? And then how much work do you want to do? Because that will help people. If you get a good established perennial garden, you're just trimming in the fall and fertilizing and thinning as you need to. And then you have stuff in color all the time. But a perfect perennial garden, I would say, has color at every point of the year. Doesn't mean you're going to have color all the time. So you might have like early spring bulbs that transition into early spring color of your other leafy perennials into midsummer and then all the way through fall. And then you're dying things down. And there's some stuff that needs a lot of heat before it's going to do anything, hibiscus included. And I'm not talking like boring Rose of Sharon.
Right. Yeah.
I want a big old beefy thing like the size of my head. Obviously, I need to live on an island where the temperature never goes below 65 and the humidity is 73 and my hair's frizzy all the time. I'm not willing to make that compromise.
Or just build a greenhouse for it.
Yes and no. I was in Michigan last summer for visiting some growers of a brand that we work with, Proven Winners. And it's kind of funny. I'm in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, at a huge trial garden, seeing hostas the size of a VW bus. That I'm like, that would never happen in Idaho. There's just not enough moisture. And he's like, oh, you're from Idaho. You guys have educated gardeners. I was like, excuse me, what? Huh? Well, in Michigan, you can put anything in the ground and it grows. Anything.
In Michigan?
Uh-huh.
Like where it snows a ton.
And they get cold, but anything grows because the nutrient profile of the soil, and they don't have the same pH issues. They don't have that high altitude desert. They have enough moisture that even if things, things get stupid cold, they come back. There's enough moisture. And then they have enough, half the time they don't even have irrigation. Like we all have sprinklers. Like people are counting down how many days of water we have this year. This is what?
Yeah.
And so apparently Idaho is full of educated gardeners. So that's why I'm here, I guess.
To educate.
Yeah. So this is actually, I was talking in our last podcast about everybody has their niche. Mine's veggies and color. I love annuals. Because I like change a lot. I like things to look different all the time. Perennials, my brother nerds out. Like that's his jam. He loves perennials. So depending on what Dewey, my brother, is into at any given time, we'll have a flush of it. So it was hostas and heucheras for a little bit. Now we're on an echinacea kick. So you'll see a lot of coneflowers all over. And so it'll shift. But yeah, we're working on kind of beefing up our perennials. But the thing about it is from an industry standpoint, because of the pandemic, it's hard to get your hands on them. So, and it takes them 6 to 8 years to catch up with the market. So about the time they figure it out, everybody will be able to travel and be leaving all the time again. But we're going to do our dangdest, by golly. And Dewey's whole thing is to qualify as a perennial for Moss Greenhouse's schedule. He wants it to be a rebloomer. So that's where we're just like, hey, this is a rebloomer, which means it blooms once and it starts to die off. Go trim that baby and you'll get another bloom. Might come in a second flush a little bit later because the plant has to kind of like catch back up. But it definitely gives you some flex.
Yeah, that's nice.
Right?
Yeah.
It makes things a little bit easier. But I mean, that's what you kind of got to think about. And our retail manager, when she's answering perennial questions, she'll be like, kind of like, what's the color of your house? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And those aren't things I even care about. Like, I am not the matchy person.
Right.
I am, again, life on full high definition. Like, rainbow, everything. Don't care. And one thing's colorful. I don't care if they match. It's actually how we qualified the children before they walk out of the house. I'm like, that doesn't match, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. You're cool with that? I'm cool with that. But you just need to know it doesn't match.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm cool with it. I want to wear it. And it's because of this. Right.
My bed doesn't match either out front.
You be you.
Yeah. I've got irises, and then I've got roses, and then I've got like pink roses, and then I've got candy cane roses, and then I have a lavender plant.
Well, you want all of those things, right? And you don't care how they go in. And some people are super anal about it, which is fine. I mean, I want this tall back here. I want it exactly manicured here. Like, great. We can help you with that. But you're not going to have a lot of diversity if you do that. If that's what they want to do it, you do you. Don't have any problem with that. But that's the beauty of gardening. There's something for everybody. You don't have to fit into a box. But if you want to, you can. It's just like the consistent customer who always does 10 red geraniums on her front every year. That's what she wants. She never deviates. If I can talk her into pink with red stripes, I have won the frickin' lottery. And I try to do that. We actually had, I cut Cherokee purple tomatoes last year. Stupidest thing I've ever done, apparently, or so I was told. Because the plants only produce like 3 to 4 tomatoes. Why would I give it that much real estate if it's only going to give me 3 to 4 fruit? I'm not. I'm going to find a better purple. So I did. Well, I've been hearing about it for months and months and months and months on end. So I added it back. And so anyone who asked for a Cherokee purple, I said, here's my ask. Please grow the Cherokee purple and the Chef's Choice purple. Put them right next to each other. I don't care. I want you to see which one you like better. Because this one has a higher yield. It's an All-American Selections winner, which is kind of like a plant rating award system that kind of takes care of, once a winner, always a winner. And, it just means this tomato kicks ass. So problem solved. So put them next to each other. Let's check it out. Let's see if it's better than the Cherokee purple. Or if you grow it and you're like, that one's garbage, only grow the Cherokee. Fine, tell me. We're flexible. I just got to know.
Yeah.
Because if I don't like it, eventually I'm going to pull it. It's going to happen. So you want to tell me if you like something, because I decide whether that happens or not. You got to know who to talk to.
You need to talk to the greenhouse lady.
You need to talk to the or message us or call and say, hey, are you ever going to grow? Or next year, could you look at, like, sometimes I can't get it. Do you love it when, like, you're reading one of those, like Sunset magazines or Better Homes and Gardens? Be like a picture of, like, let's pick on Pinterest, a rainbow colored rose.
Yes.
That doesn't exist.
No.
It's dye with a needle into the plant. It's like carnations. That's how they're blue. There's no blue carnations. That doesn't happen. There's not blue. There's carnations. Mm-hmm. There's white ones with blue dye. Just like there's not blue orchids. That's not real. That's dye. I know.
No blue orchids.
So let them go all the way through their growth cycle. Let them rebloom. You will see they're white.
Mine don't rebloom. That's another subject for another time.
You just don't have them in the right window. And they need a feed cycle.
Yeah.
And if they put on a new leaf, then they will start to send out a spike. My grandmother is an orchid whisperer, hands down. I don't know how she does it. But actually, granddad, Ed Adams, generation 1 of the greenhouse. I'm generation 4. He was an orchid grower. So Grandma Carolyn, who's generation 2, is orchid whisperer. I don't know how she does it, but she does it. She's a miracle worker with it. She's like, oh my God, how'd you do this? And she just makes it happen. That and bromeliads, she can just make them. And these are tropicals, not perennials, but she can just make them do whatever she wants. So yeah, that's kind of what a perennial is in Idaho. If I circle back to topic, but I keep playing with stuff. I actually used to ask my mom when I first started working here. I'm on my 11th season this round, and I'm fully in this time. I think you work out here in high school and college, it doesn't really count. So I asked her, I said, how did you learn all this? How do you remember all this? Because there's a lot of plants. It's a lot of information. I actually had our retail assistant manager grab me a couple weeks ago, and she just looks at me and goes, how do you remember all this crap? And that's Jane. That's typical Jane. And I just looked at her and I said, you just gave me the best moment of deja vu. I have asked my mother this question years ago, and what she told me was, I planted it in the ground. I tried. I played with it. I answered questions. And I always feel like retail in a garden center is like boot camp for plants. You learn stuff because everybody's asking you questions. You have to learn. And so it's just a case of playing with it, trying it, playing with it, trying it, playing with it, trying it. And that's kind of the benefit of working in a greenhouse. I can play with all sorts of stuff and try all sorts of stuff. And so there's always something new, and there's always something I don't grow. And I always get busted in Costco buying mums in my greenhouse shirt. And because we don't grow mums, and I want one. And Pioneer, who grows for them, grows these big, beautiful mums, and they do a great job. So at $13.99, this massive mum, I buy it because that's a smoking deal. Yeah. So good on Costco and good on Pioneer for doing that. So, I mean, it just depends on what you like to grow. So it's kind of the nuts and bolts of perennials.
Perfect. Well, thanks.
Yeah. What perennial are you going to grow this year?
All of them.
No, you're not. You're going to pick one.
I don't know. I haven't even thought about my life in mud.
Okay, so we're going to try something. You're going to try one of my new shrubs. Okay, so we're doing the shrub trial program. And it's with Proven Winners because we grow for Garden Answer YouTube channel. And we're going to try a limelight hydrangea in your yard. Okay. Because hydrangeas don't really work here except certain kinds. So moss is growing in certain kinds. And let's give it a try. I'm going to try one too. Okay. We actually have a little competition going on at my household. Each person in the house, so my husband, my 2 daughters, and me, we each get a section on the back wall, and we get to design our own garden. Ironically, I'm a vandal, and my husband is going for BSU colors. Thank you to the blue and orange shirt you're wearing currently. And so we are going to have a little gardening competition. And so I'm actually going to put limelight hydrangeas in between our sections to help break it apart so that we can try this. And with that, like, go now, live and be bold, because a plain life is boring. And thanks for listening to Bloom in Full Color.